Donald Trump is using every weapon in his arsenal to fight former National Security Advisor John Bolton's book from being released. However, at this point, it doesn't matter much. The Washington Post has already published much of the damaging information from the book after getting an advance copy of the book that is scheduled to be released next week. The Justice Department has filed a civil lawsuit demanding that Bolton get his publisher, Simon & Schuster, to destroy all copies of the book already printed and delivered and not to discuss it at all. They have also requested he wait for a redacted version of his book to be delivered for publication. Wednesday, the DOJ sought an emergency order from a judge to prevent this information from getting out. But the information is already out there, and much of it is stunning. It's not necessarily surprising after 3.5 years of Trump as the commander-in-chief, but it's still stunning, nonetheless, to have the confirmation of what has been going on in the Oval Office. It turns out Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wasn't the only one to be asked to help Trump with the 2020 election. While he was asked to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic candidate, Trump also reached out to Chinese President Xi Jinping. Bolton writes in his new book, The Room Where It Happened, a White House memoir, that during a one-on-one meeting at the 2019 Group of 20 summit in Japan, Xi complained to Trump about U.S. critics of China. Trump assumed he meant the Democrats and noted the hostility of the party. He then, stunningly, turned the conversation to the coming U.S. presidential election, alluding to China's economic capability to affect the ongoing campaigns, pleading with Xi to ensure he'd win, writes Bolton. He stressed the importance of farmers and increased Chinese purchases of soybeans and what in the electoral outcome. I would print Trump's exact words, but the government's pre-publication review process has decided otherwise. It's apparent right there that there is much more to this story, but Bolton has already been muted by the White House in the pre-publication process. Yet, despite going through that process, Trump still wants to stop this book, as it could be the nail in the coffin to his re-election chances with his poll numbers already dropping more and more each week that goes by. This also confirmed that the Ukraine scandal wasn't a one-and-out thing for Trump. Of the offense, Bolton confirms that a quid pro quo took place and says last August, Trump said he wasn't in favor of sending them anything until all Russia investigation material related to Hillary Clinton and Biden had been turned over. Bolton mentions in the book a phone call in May 2019 from Russian President Vladimir Putin. He compared Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido to Clinton. Bolton writes that Putin largely persuaded Trump with a brilliant display of Soviet-style propaganda to get support for Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. A year earlier, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan sent a memo to Trump that claimed a Turkish company being investigated by the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York for sanctions violations was innocent. Trump then told Erdogan he would take care of things, explaining that the Southern District prosecutors were not his people but were Obama people, a problem that would be fixed when they were replaced by his people, writes Bolton. Bolton was disturbed by Trump's interactions with other leaders and scheduled a meeting with Attorney General William Barr to discuss it. He claims Barr was worried as well. When this book was being discussed last January, a DOJ spokeswoman said Barr did not agree with Bolton and did not speak against the president's behavior. While he doesn't discuss whether the Ukraine scandal was an impeachable offense for Trump and refused to testify before the House in the investigation, he does write in the book that he found the president's actions to hold up Ukraine aid to pressure Zelensky deeply disturbing and that he tried to counter it by reporting his concerns to Barr and the White House counsel's office. I thought the whole affair was bad policy, questionable legally, and unacceptable as presidential behavior, writes Bolton. Stunningly, he suggests in the tell-all that he, along with former Chief of Staff John Kelly, and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, all considered resigning in their frustration and disgust. Bolton writes that Kelly asked, "What if we have a real crisis like 9/11 with the way he makes decisions?" He second-guessed people's motives, saw conspiracies behind rocks, and remained stunningly uninformed on how to run the White House, let alone the huge federal government, writes the former National Security Advisor. He preferred to look toward personal instinct and reality TV showmanship. His limited knowledge showed in conversations with other leaders and his advisors. He asked Kelly if Finland was part of Russia. In a 2018 meeting with then British Prime Minister Theresa May, when a British official referred to the UK as a nuclear power, Trump questioned, "Oh, are you a nuclear power?" Trump thought invading Venezuela would be cool and that the country was really part of the United States. He often confused current and former Afghanistan presidents and asked Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan to help him on a deal with Iran. He told XI that Americans wanted him to change constitutional rules so that he could serve more than 2 terms. Always, though, what was most important to Trump was securing that second term, let alone any additional terms he would be allowed. "I am hard-pressed to identify any significant Trump decision during my tenure that wasn't driven by re-election calculations," he writes. Trump wanted to leave Afghanistan during his second year and not his third so that he could blame former President Barack Obama for the war. He yelled in a meeting with advisors in 2018 his reasoning for wanting immigration to go down and the wall to be built, "I got elected on this issue, and now I'm going to get unelected," he said. He writes, too, of the dismay felt regarding Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his position as a senior advisor. He learned Kushner would be calling the Turkish finance minister, as he was also Erdogan's son-in-law. "I briefed Pompeo and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin on this new son-in-law channel, and they both exploded. Pompeo was furious," writes Bolton, "because this was one more example of Kushner's doing international negotiations he shouldn't have been doing, along with the never-quite-ready Middle East peace plan." Bolton writes that shortly after he started his position as National Security Advisor, Kelly told him, "You can't imagine how desperate I am to get out of here," adding, "This is a bad place to work, as you will find out." Whether the emergency order or civil lawsuit to stop the publication of this book are successful really doesn't matter at this point. The horse has left the barn. All of this information is already out there. That public opinion, as Trump is well aware with his plummeting poll numbers, can't be easily forgotten.